Hey, everybody. Welcome to All Access Live with Kevin Rankin. I appreciate you being here at this time. This is typically when we have the show. So if you do me a favor and you go to youtube.com/@accesskevin and subscribe to this channel, click the bell to be notified. And every day that we do the show at 5 o'clock Pacific, you'll be able to access all of the episodes that are for subscribers. You can also become a member. So there are episodes that are only exclusive to members, like my hang with Kelly Keegi of Night Ranger back at his place in Arizona, adult video superstar Ginger Lynn, Cy Kernan from The Fix, Mid-Year from Ultravox, and backstage hangs while we're out on tour with the Flock of Seagulls. So I'll be out this weekend. Flock of Seagulls is playing in California. We'll do some backstage hangs with Bow Wow Wow and Gene Loves Jezebel. Plenty of cool bands. Drama Rama will be there. So if you're a member, you'll get access only because you're a member of All Access Live. Also, I have an amazing sponsor. 5 Star Guitars is based in Beaverton, Oregon. So if you're interested in playing guitar, or you want to get lessons online, or maybe get your accessories or get some repairs done, go to 5starguitars.com. And as you will find, if you order outside of Oregon, there's no sales tax here. You're going to save a bunch of money on all your stuff. Plus, using the promo code of All Access Live, you get to save 15% off of everything you see in your box. So let them know that I sent you. I would appreciate it. And again, make sure that you also subscribe to the channel. So my next guest is a great, amazing musician, really solid human being that I've known for over 25 years. If you are a rock and roll fan in the Northwest, you probably knew him from the Mayfield Four. But right now, we've got all sorts of new adventures to talk about with Mr. Marty Meisner. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing excellent, Kevin. Thank you so much. It's awesome to be here.
It's great to see you, man. I love that white mic. That's a solid podcasting microphone for sure. So you got a pod coming up.
Got a podcast, yeah, coming out. Basically, it's my wife and I, and we're going to be talking kind of about all the struggles and, the amazing things and the struggles that happen to married couples that work together.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh, well,
we're gonna get gritty.
Do you have a handful of couples already lined up that you wanted to interview?
No, not really. We were going to be on a friend of ours podcast, and it's called Marriage LLC. But because of the move out of our storefront, my studio is broken down. We're in my dining room right now. We've got construction going on in the house, and so everything is just kind of discombobulated right now. But soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, people can see this if you're watching the video here. Triple M Productions LLC.com, MMMProductions.com, MMMProductions LLC.com. That is not necessarily your podcast. That's your video production company, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you have going on there? What's that all about?
The video production?
Yeah.
Well, as you know, I wasn't playing music after Mayfield very much at all. So I kind of lost that creative outlet and ended up moving to Vancouver, Washington from Seattle. Prior to that, I was in Tucson. We can get into that later. But moved to Vancouver and really had no creative outlet. And just out of happenstance, I picked up a camera and started kind of just creating some product videos for Mickey's business and filming her with green screen and, just having fun, and really just fell in love with it and found out that that was my new passion. So being a musician and not having that creative outlet to be able to play and perform, it just kind of took the place of that. And so here we are 7 years later, and I'm still doing it.
You mentioned Mickey earlier, so that is your bride. That's Mrs. Meisner, right? So
That's
you guys,
Mrs. Meisner.
And you've been working in business together as a married couple. So that thus the impetus for the podcast related to relationships working together.
Correct. Yeah, because we've been through so much. I mean, she was there. She was there through. Well, I was married. My ex-wife, as you know, Kristen. She was Mickey kind of came on board. It's been 11 years,
Okay.
and that her and I have been together. So she came on board. We were reintroduced to each other 11 years ago, and she was the first girl I ever kissed when we were 12 in junior high.
Wow.
Uh, and we went our separate ways and did our own thing and had to get married and have kids and get divorced. And so we reunited 11 years ago. And I don't know, it's been amazing. But we've been through so much with going to court to fight for my son for parental rights. So she's been through all of that with me and stayed with me. And as you know, with alcoholism, I was in sobriety for a year before I relapsed, and then Mickey and I reconnected like literally 3 months after I had relapsed. So that was fresh. So
Wow.
she had a lot of stuff that she had to deal with and put up
Yeah.
with, and she stayed with me through thick and thin. And so we've got a lot of stories to share, and that's
I,
why we're going to be doing this podcast.
yeah, there are a bunch of things. First of all, let me just say, guys, I see you there on Instagram chatting. Our good friend, our mutual friend, John Colgate says, Marty, what's up?
What's up,
So
John?
good to see you, John. If you guys are watching on Instagram or Facebook or Twitch or any of that, just do me a favor. Go to YouTube. It's easier for us to see the chats and we can engage and interact with you. But you talked about the challenges of working together with somebody that you're married to. I've mentioned this before. As musicians, you and I get this. Uh, if people watch this and they're not involved in that kind of partnership, being in a band is certainly like a marriage. And sometimes it's a 3-person or 4-person or 5-person marriage. So it's really difficult to manage personality traits and aspirations and differences of opinion. And while you may not be romantically connected, you're around each other a lot, sometimes 24/7. And the art of compromise is definitely a skill that is difficult to master sometimes. So we know each other through music, of course. You and I met you actually 30 years ago, like just a couple months ago, I think.
Yeah,
1995, I think, was the first gig that Mayfield Four and Analama played together up in Seattle. And maybe we can start there. That's awesome. I remember playing gigs together with you guys and thinking, how on earth could we even step on stage after seeing Mayfield Four? Right, that band at that point was a foursome, right? You had not
yeah,
yet come out with the live EP. I think was it the OK Hotel? Is that where the first the? Oh no, it was Outback Jacks that you guys did the live EP, but you did a CD
yeah,
release at the OK Hotel. I still have my
yep.
laminate that was guaranteeing me lifetime access to get into any Mayfield Four show.
Does it still work? Oh well, we're
No,
not
I can't
around,
get it.
so
No, that's like, and it doesn't work at Myles Kennedy shows. It doesn't work when I go to see like Marty at the Ponderosa in Vancouver. Just nowhere. And so,
it should.
um,
It should.
I would hope, but that band, as you know, um, well, let's talk about the formation of the band first of all, because I know that there's a Spokane, sort of source of that band, and then tell me about the formation and sort of how you and I then got to know each other.
So formation of Mayfield. So we all went to high school together, junior high and high school together. So that's how we knew each other. We had all played in various other bands. I was in a couple different cover bands, and Miles and Zia were in a band. I believe that was Widow's Party. So I think they were like 13 or something. Um, but we knew each other in the music scene, and we went to the same high school. So that's kind of how we all met. I ended up moving to Seattle after I went to Falls in the music program in Spokane,
Okay.
and then I
College.
went to in college, and then I went to Western Washington University. Ended up moving back to Seattle, and then Miles had called me to play on some Citizen Swing music, which
Oh,
was
okay.
pre Mayfield,
Right.
and they were kind of a ska band. They had Jeff Miller, a trumpet player, in there, and so I recorded a couple songs, with Myles and the group, and then Myles really wanted to kind of move a different direction. And at the time, I was playing in Give in Seattle with the Friel brothers, and we did some shows together in Spokane and Seattle. So it was Citizen Swing and Give, but very, very different, music genres. But Myles had mentioned that he really wanted to do something different and more rock and songwriter oriented. So he called me up, and he was, I think at the time, Craig Johnson was in Citizen Swing,
Okay.
and Dave Turner, another great bass player. He's a music teacher in Spokane now. But he ended up calling us, Zia and myself, and saying, "Hey, you guys want to come get together, practice, and work on some of the songs that I've been writing?" And so we carpooled to Seattle, Zia and me, and the four of us rehearsed. And it was like that first rehearsal, we knew that we had something really special.
Yeah.
So
Do
that's
you
how
remember what you
Mayfield
actually?
started.
Do you remember what you learned for the rehearsal? What songs?
No, I don't. I don't even think. I don't remember if he sent me anything or not. I think it was
Okay.
just let's get together and kind of hash out some of these songs.
Sure.
And we just knew we had something special. So
Yeah.
every other weekend, it was either practice in Seattle or practice in Spokane. And so
The
that went on
commute.
for, the commute. That went on for at least a year, I think, year and a
Wow.
half
Before you
before
guys
we
even played any
started.
live shows, or
Yeah, at least a year before we played any live shows.
and that was
So,
you, Myles, Zia, and Craig.
and Craig, right?
Okay. Okay. And so at that point, I mean, I know, like, of course, the live EP. I'm sure that people are watching this probably know the Mayfield Four, right? I mean, you got to the point where there was some really good radio, at least an introduction to radio play, and the record deals. We were all vying for record deals at that same point, mid '90s,
Right.
the Seattle scene. What was the point in which everybody just finally migrated from Spokane out? Did everybody move to Seattle eventually?
No, I ended up moving to Spokane.
You
So,
did? Okay.
yeah, I moved to Spokane, moved in with Myles, and basically had a room there, and that made it a lot easier to be able to rehearse and work on stuff. So we did that. Yeah, because I was in Spokane until after my first marriage, and then moved back to Seattle. So
Okay.
yeah,
Man. Oh, yeah. So what was the plan? Because I know, like, I
yeah.
think
There's so much hidden space in there, right? It's like I'm trying to
right.
remember and fill it all in.
A lot has happened for all of us between that. I mean,
Right.
COVID didn't help, right? Because there's a definite fog and a window that just disappeared from me. But I love chatting about this stuff, as you know. I mean, Mayfield was a really important part of my development phase because I had moved to Portland and the Northwest and had been playing around with my band on Alama. When we started gigging and played some shows with you guys up in Seattle, I was totally inspired, thinking, all right, I've never heard a band like that, right? And there was so much energy at that point as a four piece. You guys were starting to draw a really cool kind of cult following. And I don't know if Eric Hoppy had been involved with you guys at that point yet in management. I think it was just you at first. You guys were just hustling. I could be wrong, but you went away, came back with that live EP, and a great cover of the Marvin Gaye tune, right? Inner City Blues, and
Yeah, yeah,
like No One Nothing was one I remember seeing you guys, and it was so powerful. There was and at that point too, the dual guitar thing with Myles and Craig was kind of a cool, but it wasn't like a dual guitar Iron Maiden or like AC/DC thing. It was something totally different. So what was the inspiration for you guys? Did you guys listen to bands to reference, or was this just because each one of you guys came with kind of a different background prior to even playing in the bands you were in? So what kind of stuff did you
yeah.
like?
Well, I was really into like junior high and high school. I was really into more alternative music, so that's why I loved you and Rob playing In Excess at
Oh
the
yeah.
at the benefit the other night. It was I was really into the Police, and I mean, when I
Mm,
first started playing bass when I was 13, it was like I had vinyl. I had all the Police albums on vinyl that were out in excess, and I would pick up the needle, move it on the vinyl, drop it, learn the bass lines, pick it up, drop it. So
there's all the Police right there
yeah,
in
yeah.
that stack of vinyl. Sorry, go ahead.
So I mean, my big background, and I loved Zeppelin and stuff too, but I didn't really listen to that much.
Yeah,
I definitely wasn't into the heavy stuff. So, even in cover bands later on, it was like I would play and sing like The Cure and In Excess and things like that. So I was really kind of a pop kind of lover, pop
yeah,
music. But we all had the same influences when it came to like the Police, Led Zeppelin, especially jazz backgrounds and
yeah,
blues. Blues now is, I think it's totally different than what it used to be.
yeah,
Um, so Marvin Gaye, anything that really, and Miles is such a great songwriter that he could kind of intertwine those things. But we each had our own influences that I think we brought to the table that really kind of helped create and craft that sound.
I could hear. I mean, really, the R&B influences you talked about. I'm thinking about that Marvin Gaye line and the ding, 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 bing, on the Inner City Blues, and that vibe was certainly what you brought forth. And first couple of records, man, it was really prominent, your bass parts, which is cool, right? Because sometimes records they just bury the bass line so deep that you have to be a musician to kind of pick those things out. But the that first I think those first two records, right, were just self-funded. I think you guys just were out there putting your own funds in and playing gigs and just putting it back into the band. Is that where all the sourcing came from?
Well, we put out a 5-song EP, and I think that was, I still have some cassettes, but that was on cassette. And so I think the cover was two little kids fighting in a boxing ring.
Okay.
So we put that out, and that's kind of what we used to be able to get gigs and send around to the clubs. But Eric Hoppy was a huge, uh, he was there pretty much in the beginning because him and
Was he?
Zia was playing in a band called Inflatable Soul.
Right.
And that was with Peter Cornell and the Cornell sisters, and Joel Tipke was in that band.
That's
And
right.
so, and then he went on the road with another band, and I can't remember their name right now. They had
Yeah,
a small record deal.
it was one name. Yeah, it was a really it was one word name. I can't think of it either. Yeah. Somebody's in the chat. They might know. Throw it out there.
Yeah. So he was on the road, and that's when Miles had called Zia and said, "Hey, I got this thing I want to put together with Marty and Craig and you. What do you think?" And he was so unhappy being on the road with this band, that he said yes. But back to Eric Hoppy and his involvement, he was our number one fan from the beginning, and he worked at Silver Management with Susan Silver, Chris
That's
Cornell's
right.
wife. So that was a bonus because Eric worked his butt off, but we kind of had the wings of Susan Silver, atop of us. So it was kind of like, okay, I'll help you guys as much as I can, but this is Eric Hoppy's deal. So I would say a lot of Eric's legwork and the management that he brought to the table really helped get us the deal that we did, um, with Epic Records. But we did a lot of shows. We played with you guys, I think, in Portland as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. I don't remember the venue. Um, if that was in Portland
Burbati's
or
Pan.
Burbati's. Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
Burbati's. Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
Was that so? The Fallout record was that actually on Epic as well, or because I knew Second Skin was, but did you get to put out Fallout with Epic?
yeah, things kind of
Okay.
happened pretty fast. I mean, they actually funded the live EP as well.
Did they? Okay.
So yeah, so um, and I want to say when we were recording Fallout, I think was it Fallout when Jeff Buckley died. And
Yeah.
he was such a huge influence, especially for Myles.
Right.
But things happened pretty fast. I mean, we had several labels, wanting to kind of sign us, and some of them were small that were like a publishing company slash record label. But then what really kind of sold us was that Richard Griffiths, the president of Epic Records, he flew to Seattle to see us play. And I think he only did that one other time for another band, and that was Pearl Jam.
Pearl Jam.
And
Right.
so that really, said a lot to us. So we knew that, okay, well, we got the president of the label that's fully behind us. This will happen. But then he ended up leaving while we were recording Fallout.
Of course. Oh God.
And
Yeah.
he went to a publishing company in London or something. So,
These up and coming bands that are aspiring to get a record deal, and they think once you get the deal, right, then everything is gravy. The money starts flowing in. You're riding in limos and flying in private jets, and unfortunately, yeah, and far less the case now than even then, right? So, what was that experience once you signed the deal? What was the support you had from Epic?
Well, we signed our deal, and that's when the work really began, because we wanted to show that we were really careful with our money. We didn't want to go right into a tour bus. We didn't want anything handed to us. It was really, let's go buy a 15-passenger van and a trailer and go on the road with 1 to 2 other people, like a sound guy that maybe tour managed, which is what we ended up with, Rod Doak, who was Screaming Trees sound guy.
Okay.
And so we stayed at like family and friends' houses, or wherever we could.
Yeah.
Or
right.
we'd get like a Motel 6 room and share it.
All 4 of you guys.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. Maybe 2 rooms if we were splurging.
Sure.
So the first record, we didn't spend a lot of money. We were going to do a video, and back then, as you know, videos were pretty expensive, and MTV was still around. So
right.
we got to do some cool stuff in New York with like Matt Pinfield in a studio, and filmed a little bit of some video stuff. I think it was more of like for a treatment. But we found a guy in Canada that could do it for like $200,000 total or something. And back then, that was like, Canadian dollars. Yeah, it was like 400,000 or whatever in Canadian dollars. So, but Epic didn't want to invest in the money, or the money into the videos. So we ended up doing our own later on with Second Skin.
Right.
That I think is still on YouTube. And that was
the Sick and Wrong video.
Sick and Wrong, yeah.
Yeah.
But so we didn't do a video for anything on Fallout, and we really didn't kind of have the support that we thought we were going to have. And I think at that time too, Rob Dacre was in Slow Rush. Yep. They were on Epic.
Yeah.
And they were getting dropped. And so we were all fearful, like, oh, great, this is the end of our huge career that we worked so hard to get to. So there was a lot of stuff happening and going on, but we hit the road. We toured with, I can't even remember what the first tour was, but we toured extensively with, we did a tour with Craig Montoya with Art Alice, Everclear, and Creed.
I remember seeing you. I saw you with Fuel and Eve Six.
Fuel.
Yeah.
Eve Six. Yeah. We did a lot of different shows. We played like second stage at Ozfest, opened for Dave Matthews. So some of the tours were a little funky or weird, but we did some really cool festivals as well, like in Chicago and Midwest and stuff that, you had like 70,000 people there, and it was like, what?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I mean, at that point too, right? The band hadn't gotten, because if there was no video support, so the only way that people would know you guys is word of mouth or maybe some radio. And I knew, I think, was it was it Always? Is that the first single that actually got put on the radio from the Fallout record?
I think it was Sucker Punch.
Oh, was it? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I knew that. I think there were two, right, from that record that got some radio play. I do remember, yeah, Sucker Punch was out in syndication, but um, I remember telling people, friends of mine around the country, and man, you got to check out this band, and it's funny to think about now because this is pre-YouTube, this is pre-social
Right.
media,
Right.
so it, the way that bands would be discovered really was like touring. Videos helped before, but um, you mentioned Rob and Slow Rush. So I just had Rob on the show recently, and I was just talking to Dan Pred from Slow Rush as well. And I asked him, whatever happened, because Dan's a video producer as well, right?
Right.
A really
Yeah.
accomplished video producer. Why wasn't there a video for Slow Rush? And he said, dead presidents, man. The label did not want to throw money at this. And so it was up to the bands, to come up with a way to promote the image of the bands. And I do remember talking to a label rep from Epic at the Crystal Ballroom here in Portland. She sometimes watches this show, so I'm not going to call her out by name. But I remember asking her, "What is the deal? Like, why aren't more people knowing about like Slow Rush and Mayfield Four? Right? These incredible bands that are so marketable." She said, "Oh, we've tried. We tried to put them into radio and get them in stores and promo, and yeah, the band's just not." And I'm standing there with Dan Pratt he's like, that never happened. We never got any of that radio stuff. Like, this was people kind of like really scapegoating other people in the label, and I don't know if it was because there was a lot of upheaval in the record labels at that point, but I realized that unless you had a personal interest in a particular band, those label reps weren't doing much to really promote, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was really tough. I mean, even like we played a couple shows in New York, um, and we played. Well, when we were on our first tour, I think it was our first tour. We were actually showing up at venues that Kid Rock used to was just at the night before, and we did have kind of the foot team, like the college kids that would go out and kind of plaster everything with flyers. And we got some college radio play too. But one thing I know that with Epic, the big thing was pushing Macy Gray, and that was kind of a huge. And we had the same A&R team, so they were really frustrated. But here's the label sinking millions of dollars just into video and production for Macy Gray, and then here's us, just out on tour every single day doing the grind and just not being able to kind of get that lift that we really needed. And also MTV was really kind of winding down. I think that was,
Yeah.
well, maybe that was a little bit later, but
I think you're right, though. Yeah, that was like 95, 96, right? When that was all 96, 97.
Yeah.
Did that kind of take a toll on the guys too? And at some point in there, you guys became a threesome, right? Well, and then became a foursome again with Alessandro, really. But
yeah, we went through some difficult times, and we kind of, I think one of the biggest mistakes that we made is we let Eric go. And I think we were thinking back then, we were thinking, yeah, well, the label's not afraid of our manager. And, back then the saying was, make sure your attorney's afraid of your manager, make sure the label's afraid of your manager, and everything will work as a business. And for us, we were just kind of like, look, we're out here grinding. We have some amazing songs. We're on some great tours, but we're just not getting the support.
Yeah.
And we ended up letting Eric go. And that was probably, that was just a stupid choice that we had made at the time, thinking, oh, well, we need a manager that can really push for us and that the label's kind of afraid of. And so that happened. And then we ended up letting Craig go after the tour wind down after the first record. And it was pretty much just because everybody was butting heads. And I think, we had a lot of internal structural problems kind of starting to happen. and it was just really, it just wasn't cohesive and it wasn't fun anymore. And so we ended up letting Craig go. And then we were a three piece. And so that kind of led into Second Skin. But we did go to Los Angeles and hold auditions for a touring guitar player. And that's when we met the Sauce,
This
Alessandro. That
Cortini.
was
Yeah.
Cartini. And he was going to uh, Musicians Institute at the
Okay.
time.
Just a kid.
And just a kid, man. And he
Yeah.
walked in with this like this baritone Telecaster Fender guitar, and it was like this little kid. But he, out of all the people that we auditioned, he was the only one that went up to the mic and sang backups
Mm,
and had the parts down. And it was,
right.
I think he got the music like the day before. So but he was the one that we chose, and so we ended up hiring him to tour with us, and then paid him a retainer to not tour with anybody else when we weren't touring.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, and he did some keys too, right? Didn't he play keys with you guys on some stuff? No, at that point it was
No,
just guitar. Okay.
just
Because I mean, I
just
know
guitar.
of course, like post Mayfield, right? He's done everything with like Nine Inch Nails, and he's been busy. So
Yeah, he has his own band that he's always had called Mod Wheel Mood,
right.
and he really went down a direction of analog synth sounds, and basically recording all these different sounds. And I've gone to see him like 3 or 4 times, playing live shows. He played here last year in Portland. But it's a different vibe because
Yeah. Oh yeah.
it's totally different. But then of course he auditioned for Nine Inch Nails and got keyboard parts, and now he's doing really well with that. And I think they're back out on tour now, and so he's doing great.
I mean, it's nice to hear the rebounds, that work out that way. You went out with him as touring guitarist, and had you been working on Second Skin music? So Second Skin, the last record from the Mayfield Four, did you work on stuff while you're on the road in all that extensive touring, or did you come home and start shedding on those tunes?
No, there was definitely Second Skin. Miles, he was always like in the van, or I think, yeah, because we were still in a van for Fallout. He'd be in the van writing stuff and coming up with ideas and whatnot. But Second Skin kind of developed mainly when we were back in Spokane, and there were many nights of, since I still lived with him. I think at that point I was moving out, but 4 a.m., sitting on the floor of the practice room, just noodling out kind of details to some songs and coming up with what we did. So
Just the three of you
seconds,
guys?
but yeah, just
Okay.
Zia, Miles, and me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You were going to say something about Second Skin.
I don't remember. I think
Well,
Alessandro kind of came on, obviously after Second Skin. I think it already been we had already had a lot of the song, or the songs done.
did you record those in LA, or did you do them up in Spokane?
We recorded Second Skin in, um, I I want to say, I'm getting these mixed up because Fallout we recorded Fallout in Seattle, at I think it was Bob Lang's, and then mixed with Brendan O'Brien in Atlanta.
Hmm.
And then we recorded Second Skin in, we did some tracks in San Francisco, but where did we record that? I can't remember right now. I
Yeah,
know we
there's
mixed
the
it. We
vortex.
mixed in we mixed in Florida,
Okay.
um, with Tom Lord Alge. He mixed that record in Miami Beach.
Wow.
I'm trying to remember where did we record Second Skin? That's weird.
You know what? You might have fans that just pop into the chat and tell us.
Yeah,
That's
right.
funny. Well, yeah, so at that point, and because the label was not necessarily supporting you guys, what was the plan? Is you drop the record, you get out there, and you got some tours to jump on, and hopefully get your way into headlining spots? Or
Yeah, we had. we had the support on the second record, but it wasn't very much. But at that point, we were kind of like, okay, let's spend some money. So we did the tour bus, and stayed in hotels and stuff. So at that point, it was like, what good is holding back and not enjoying kind of the frugals of what's happening here. So we were a little bit less. We didn't feel as obligated to show that we're going to be really careful with not going
Yeah.
overboard. But really, we didn't want to. We had a 3-album deal, so and we kind of held the cards. We had a really good attorney, Lisa Sokransky, who I think is Miles's attorney still. But really good attorney, and we had to essentially fight to get off the label. After Second Skin, we just didn't want to do a third record for Epic and go down the same road. So I think it took about a year and a half just to go through the whole legal process. And
Were
Epic
you touring
actually,
at that time at the same time, or?
no, we had kind of wind down touring with everything. We weren't, we knew that we didn't want to put out a third record on Epic. And
Okay.
ironically, Columbia, which is the sister label to Epic under Sony,
Right.
they were saying, "Oh, well, you guys can come over here," and we're like, "How will that work?"
Right. Same
And
label, essentially, right?
yeah, same label, but we thought only if we can start fresh, and they didn't want to do that. They wanted to carry the contract over to Columbia, so we didn't do that, and that's when talk about Myles doing a solo project happened, or coming out and calling it the Myles Kennedy Band instead of Mayfield Four.
Just to get out of the contract deals.
Well, I think it was more that's what Columbia wanted to do.
Okay.
They wanted to change the name and just call it the Myles Kennedy Project or whatever. And we were all against that, and that's why that didn't happen. But what really led into us getting off the label, I think Zia and me really wanted to start rehearsing and working on new stuff. And at that time, Myles was really going through a lot of tinnitus. I think, at that point he had Crohn's disease. And so he had a lot of medical stuff going on. And so we weren't really practicing or anything. But then that's when Mark Tremonti from Creed had called up Myles and said, "Hey, look, we formed a new band. It's basically Creed without Scott. And we'd love for you to come, sing on some stuff." And so that's kind of how that all happened. There wasn't really any sit down with the band saying, "Hey guys, I'm going to do this now." And so we're over. So there wasn't really any of that, but that was really tough time for, I think, all of us. And that's where I think I really kind of lost my identity. Am I rambling? Am I going off on?
No, this is,
tangents?
honestly, no, for me, as you know, I'm a massive fan of the band and all of you guys individually. And having been through a very similar thing with a band about that same time, it's cathartic for me to hear somebody else talk about their experience. For people that were fans of the band or even might not understand the dynamics of how bands evolve and devolve, I think it's important to hear this from a real personal side. So I love this. I appreciate you sharing.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, good. So I think that's where, I really kind of lost my identity because I had kind of built my whole career. And I mean, when I was 13, I wanted to play guitar. I wanted to be in a rock band or a professional musician or a teacher. And so it was really kind of my only identity. And it's kind of weird to think about, well, I could go play for another band. But really, I had so much invested with, at the time, these were my brothers. This is who I was married to, as you said earlier.
Right. Yeah.
And so I wasn't ready for a divorce.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's really where I started falling into my alcoholism and drinking heavily, and really just to kind of numb the pain and get me through to whatever the next thing was. And that stayed with me. I mean, I've been sober now for 11 years. In July, it'll be 11 years. And I think how many years do you have?
12 and a
You're
half. Yeah.
12 and a half.
Yeah.
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 So I think, in fact, I was with you in Portland for some video shoot, I think, and you and me took a little drive, but that was one of the last times that I drank
Yeah.
before my relapse. But anyway, I just kind of drowned myself, and I didn't have that identity or anything else, and that kind of brings me full circle to me talking about the production company, my video production company, and why I kind of started that as having that creative outlet. But at the time, it's like, I taught private bass a little bit. Spokane, I was kind of a big fish in a little pond.
Mm-hmm.
But I played with a few other people. Jim Boyd, a Native American, amazing artist. Played with him for a little bit. We won 2 NAMA awards, which is, the Native American Music Awards, which is kind of like the Grammys.
Mm-hmm.
And did a few other things, but really wasn't playing or performing at all.
Wasn't scratching the itch that you were missing.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just kind of fell deeper into a lot of depression.
Isn't it interesting? And I'm not trying to interrupt you, but there are so many parallels for sure. And when we think, and you've been, in recovery for a long time now. So when you think about numbing pain, hiding all those feelings of identity loss and sort of despair with a depressant, isn't that the weirdest thing that one would do that, right? Like how do I get out of my depression? Well, I'm going to take a depressant and make myself feel shittier, right? So there had to have been a pivotal moment for you. What was the straw that broke the camel's back that said, okay, I've had enough?
Well, I mean, being a rock star, it's like I kind of had this perceived idea too, because I was kind of, out of the whole band, I was kind of the one that was always the most social, right? So I'd go out in the beginning, I'd go out to, I try to get everybody else to go out, but I'd go out and meet the fans. And a lot of times I'd party with the fans or have drinks or, people buying you shots and everything else, and then doing, blow with that. It's like, oh, this is nice. You can sober up and then drink more.
Yep. Bonus.
But I think, really, I had been through so much, kind of the disbanding of Mayfield Four. At the time, I started a coffee roasting venture, which was my career prior to music, was coffee. In Tucson, Arizona. I moved there to take care of my father, who was dying of pancreatic cancer. And the year before, I had broken my back in 3 places, shooting a music video for this other band that I was playing with. So all this stuff just kind of accumulated. My father's dying. My band broke up. It's kind of like a country song, right?
Yeah.
Broke my back, and my marriage was failing. I had a newborn son, and I just hated Tucson. I wasn't really playing at all or anything. So I ended up moving back to Seattle, getting divorced, and then I just followed my ex-wife to follow my son wherever she moved. And ironically, she was kind of your neighbor for a while, her mother. But anyway, that's what brought me to Vancouver. And I had still been
Vancouver,
drinking.
Washington.
Yeah, Vancouver, Washington. I'd still been drinking. But the straw that broke the camel's back was, and now I can kind of laugh about it, but I basically almost died. I had a blood alcohol level of 0.452.
Ooh, that's some serious tolerance you had built up there, buddy.
Yeah, I had a little ambulance ride to the hospital, and I ended up like pulling IVs out of my arm, and I ran naked through the hospital.
Wow.
And so that was my last hurrah right there. That was how I went out, streaking through the hospital.
Man, I'm sure
I don't remember it, but my sponsor at the time told me all about it. So I'm like, damn, can we pull up the cameras and get the footage?
Right. I'm sure there's some out there. This is Vancouver, Washington that happened.
Right.
Okay. So I went to the hospital. You had a detox there. Tell me about like the next 60 days for you from that point.
Well, I went to AA, so I was kind of devoted to AA. And
Hold
I
on a
think
sec.
it's
Let me
what?
interrupt you. That
Yeah.
you're in the hospital, so you don't just walk into an AA meeting after you've just been,
No.
induced at
Oh, you said the
like,
next 60 days. No, it's like
yeah, yeah.
when I got out of the hospital.
I mean, how long were you in the
Um,
hospital?
oh, I think it was just 24 hours.
Okay. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
heavy detox, with the blood alcohol level like that. Okay. So you're in the hospital, you go home. What's your plan? What's your reentry plan?
Well, at that point, it was like, okay, I gotta have a schedule, and I need to stick to it, right?
Okay.
So
Were you planning
for
on
me,
never drinking again?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I knew at that point. I think if I was to drink again, I would probably die.
Okay.
Um, and being in recovery, that if you end up, you know, going back out, you're probably going to die.
Yeah.
So, and really, it's been. I mean, I'm jumping forward to now, but if you want to know the process, I went to AA for pretty much every single day, sometimes twice a day,
Okay.
and it's pretty hard to hold down a job when you have your priority is basically, oh, I have to do this to be able to stay alive,
Right.
and but I made that happen, and went to AA quite a lot and made some new friends, and it's kept me pretty much straight and narrow. So,
Tell me about that. I mean, that process of sort of restructuring your life. You made AA a priority so that you can keep yourself alive, but you had a peripheral set of people around you. Did you remove yourself from that circle, or did you kind of just maintain a life over here, but still maintain the relationships that you had?
no, I changed a lot of relationships that I had. I
Okay.
think,
All right.
uh, I stopped going to bars. I stopped going out. That I didn't even go out. I mean, now it's like I don't have a problem going to a bar. I don't
Sure.
have a problem drinking a non-alcoholic beer or something that
Mhm.
looks like alcohol. It doesn't matter. I can drink water too.
Yeah.
But I mean, for a while, it's like, yeah, I had to live this new program, and I also got involved voluntarily to a mindful meditation. It was kind of like it was a new thing that they started at Kaiser, and it was for people in recovery, but it was a mindful meditation class and biofeedback class. And so I had signed up for that, and that really taught me this other, not just the medical part, but kind of getting into the meditation part and really kind
Mm.
of learning how to control your mind. And for a lot of people, AA is either you're a light switch. It's either on or off, right? I got to go to AA. I got to go do this. I got to do this. And for me, I found out that what really kind of put me in that sinkhole was not having something I loved to do,
You bet.
and having taking the mindful meditation course and doing these group therapy sessions that are based around recovery. I don't even think the program is offered by Kaiser anymore, but doing these group programs and these group meditations, and there'd be people there that are like, oh, screw this, I don't need to be here. Why am I
Of
here?
course.
I'm here because I'm court ordered or whatever. It's
Right.
like
Yeah.
I saw it. I don't even remember where I saw it, but I saw it and was like, this looks really cool. And to this day, I use those techniques to be able to even sleep. Because I mean, a lot of times my brain won't shut off. And so
Yeah.
in a matter of minutes, I can go to this space that I've created through the course and through biofeedback and seeing the different brainwave activities in different parts of my brain. I'm able to kind of flip those on and off and be able to go into a meditative or relaxed state to where I can
Right.
sleep.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, so that really helped me.
Okay. So in that phase, you mentioned that your relationship with Mickey then restarted. So your bride, you had your first kiss many years ago. Your relationship then jumpstarts with her. She's now with someone who is in recovery from some pretty severe addictive personality and alcoholism, and has also broken his back in a few spots, dealing with some grief from the loss of your father. How does that relationship start on a good note?
Well, I think ironically, I had seen that she was giving a presentation a year before, and that was when I had relapsed and did the ambulance ride and almost died. Um, so, but I was going to go see her at that presentation, and I didn't. And I don't know why. Something just said, just don't go. And maybe I went and had a drink instead. I don't, I don't
Sure.
remember.
Yeah.
but so I saw that she was giving another presentation, and I was sober, and I ended up going to see her. It was at Chuck's Produce in their kitchen area. And I walked in, and we just knew that we were going to be together. And she had just gotten divorced. Uh, I had been divorced, for a while. And so she had to basically, take on all of this stuff. But I was so open and honest. And I tell people now I'm as transparent as cellophane. So, I don't hold things inside. I let them out. And if somebody needs to know something about me, maybe it can help them. So
Mm.
that's why I try to be as transparent as possible. So I was just flat out honest with her from day one. Like, she invited me over to her son, who is now 21. Uh, but it was his like 11th birthday party, and she invited me over just to hang out. And there was a moment where we had a little time just by ourselves. And I told her, I said, just so you know, I am uh, an alcoholic. I have about a month of sobriety after a relapse, and I'm fighting for rights to for my son. And I got a lot of stuff going on. But if you're okay with that, I will be transparent with you and jump on,
Wow.
and let's see what happens. And so thank God she said yes. I'm in it. I'm in it to win it. I'm in it for the
Mm.
long haul. But she had to put
Man,
up with some shit.
I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't just go easy, I'm sure, from that point. But the fact that you led with some honesty shows obviously some courage, and from her part, some trust. That's amazing to have that kind of trust in somebody with those revelations, right? That's heavy. Um, I'm going to fast forward. Then I'm thinking about now this forthcoming podcast where the intent is for the two of you to interview other couples to talk about relationships, how they have been challenged by working together in a business environment. It's tough, no matter what business, right? Like
Oh yeah.
bands or working. So you guys had some challenges with business recently. So do you want to talk about that sort of new morphing development?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Mickey's been doing what she's been doing. She's known as the water lady. But really now it's just about wellness and health and well-being. It's really kind of morphed with what the knowledge that she's brought on and accumulated over the last 16 years. She's been in the water business. So, when we first got together, I was like loading up the car, and we'd go do presentations at people's houses and salons and all these other wellness centers and stuff. So then we had, this was 7 years ago, we had a little wellness bar and inside of a wellness business. So we had a little 10 by 10 bar, and she did really well. And she was kind of getting out there in the community, networking a lot. And then they lost their lease. And so we moved it into our garage. And so the neighborhood thought we were drug dealers, but we were really, we were jug dealers. People would pull up and fill their water and then leave. It's hydrogen water. is what it is. So it's a really healthy water that Mickey believes in so much. So then I thought, well, why don't we open a store? And Mickey had a store, before I was in the picture. She did have a little water store in downtown Vancouver. So she'd been through this before, but we took on a really big 1,600 square foot storefront, and it really kind of morphed and evolved into, we had a massage therapist, we had a physical therapist there, we had a sound therapy room, we had whole body vibes, and then we had the water membership, and then I had my studio there. So we had been there for 5 years. We opened literally 2 weeks before the shutdown happened for COVID, and we made it through that. But we ended up just not renewing our lease. So our lease was up March 1st. So now we're out of that. And right now we are reorganizing our garage area to still be able to continue the water membership. But we've worked so hard together trying to make all these different phases of progress happen. And we've been through so much with dealing with our exes and dealing with the kids and dealing with how do we get along and not fight and bicker about all this crap that, stresses us out. And she's also in recovery. So she quit drinking in November 11 years ago. So we both have 11 years. And that's been a major plus, So when, as you turn to alcohol or whatever to be able to numb that stress or that pain. And I think if
Right.
one of us was drinking in the beginning, it wouldn't have worked. But we've gone through therapy, we've gone to counselors, and I think really it's such a learning process about ourselves as individuals, and then how can we best relate and work together as a team. And so it's really, really stressful, but it's also beautiful. But it puts stress and on every aspect of your relationship.
You bet.
So we've just kind of learned how to cope with things, and really I think the biggest thing is just how to communicate to each other. And so this whole podcast thing idea was essentially just because when I wasn't editing or filming or doing something, I would say, Mickey, come on in, let's just sit down and talk. And she'd go, well, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, let's talk about this. And it never got off the ground because we've all, her and I have been so busy with everything else going on. So I really want to bring that out and make that happen and really share with the world our story and the certain struggles that we go through, and then be able to also interview other couples or people so it's almost like therapy for myself.
Yeah. Right.
In a way, to be able to do that and talk to other people about it. Hopefully that answered your question.
Oh yeah, no, it does. I mean,
Okay.
I've mentioned before, and we talk a lot about grief. It seems like on this channel, unintentionally, because people are all going through stuff, and right now, I think the climate that we have, like in America, is certainly challenging, and there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of there's a stereotype about men in particular that there's a stigma to ask for help or go through therapy. So I like that you've talked about the different utilizations of it and how important it is, both individually and also for couples. I think we both know tons and tons of couples that one person might have wanted it more than the other. I mean, I know for myself, and I've probably been guilty of it in the past, that I wasn't able to see my own part in what was going on well enough to want to work out that part of my own or work it out with a therapist so that I could contribute to the health of the relationship, And I think hopefully as we mature and we become a little bit more emotionally involved, then you realize, okay, we both have a huge part of this and it benefits all of us, right? If you can get help from whatever direction. recovery, I talk to people about that a lot too, because um, there's a perspective outside that AA or rehab or anything else doesn't work. And the matter, I think, I mean, my take is that it's like some people can take a certain medication for a headache and it just doesn't go away. And sometimes, Excedrin's better than Advil for somebody. It's really a matter of you just trying to do what you can to get rid of the headache. You try and do whatever it takes to get your life manageable. Right. And so just like that with relationships, there's not one size fits all, to repair those things. But the important thing is to make the effort to do it, right? Instead
Yeah.
of just expecting the other person to carry the weight. It's just not, and so it, whether it's a romantic relationship or a band or a business partnership or anything like that, it's important to carry your own weight, clean up your own side of the street.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it has to do with, everything that I do, I think it evolves around compassion and empathy and humility. And I think those three things really, when you fully understand, like, I'm not here in this life necessarily for myself. I'm here to learn, but
Mhm.
I truly feel like I'm here to help others. And however that looks or whatever form that takes, if I continue to think that way, then my life becomes simpler and more manageable. And I think it's being of service to others that really has helped me. It took a long time for me to realize that, because I used to be a very selfish person. But I think kind of looking at everything in life that way, with compassion, empathy, and humility, that really helps you be a better person and just always be of service to whoever you can. And I think, I can't remember who said this, but it's like, do follow your heart for whatever you want to do. And if music is your calling, you will find a way to make that your living. And I learn every single day, and that's just how I have to kind of take it. Like, I'm here to learn and be of service. And so that's kind of what keeps me going. It keeps a smile on my face.
I love it, man. Those are they're just so important, to be able to focus on those things. You've touched on a lot of the sort of the elements that I seek and strive for every day. Um, so as far as the podcast goes, I would imagine if people wanted to get a hold of you, I know that we've got the link down below. If you're watching this, it's mmmproductionsllc.com. That's Marty's video production company. If they wanted to know more about the forthcoming podcast, where could they find that?
You can see kind of a preliminary episode on Instagram, which is
Okay.
mmm underscore video underscore productions. Really, that's kind of my YouTube. I haven't even done anything with for a long time. So right now that's
Oh,
going to change, but it is primarily, I created my YouTube channel to promote clients and people that I've done projects with, but I'll start posting them there as well, which is at MMM Video Productions.
okay.
Um,
So
yeah, and I'll if you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, that's probably the best way to be able to reach out.
so I just popped that in there, guys. If you're looking at it, Instagram, it's at mmm underscore video underscore productions. Make sure that you hit Marty up. It'd be really interesting to hear how these relationship conversations go. I think they can benefit a lot of people, even if you're not married, right? Maybe it'll help
Oh
get
yeah,
that
I'd
marriage
love to have
secured.
you
But
on it, Kevin,
uh,
because
I feel
you're
like I had
you're
a
so amazing.
well, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, okay, so I was married 28 years and I feel like it was a win, even though the marriage didn't survive. I, of course, have two incredible young men, that came from that marriage, but the growth that happened and the loss and a lot of the difficult times that go through, um, a process, through the evolution of a marriage. I'm grateful for them all. I don't have regrets about a lot of that. It's important to look at what worked and what didn't. So as you're doing your podcast and you talk about the challenges, I love hearing that from other people. Even though I'm not married anymore, I definitely see that it's applicable to all relationships going forward. And I applaud you and Mickey both for approaching it with humility and respect, and boy, a lot of patience, man. Patience is key, right? So
Yeah. It's funny because we'll even, she'll hear something I said in a totally wrong way, kind of like texting. You can't see somebody's face or hear it in the inflection in their voice. So you're like, wait, what? Why'd they say it that way? What do you mean? And we'll have those little moments, and I'll be like, honey, this is what I meant. And just being able
yeah,
to be that transparent about it, because I know what triggers her. She knows what
yeah,
triggers me. And we still play that game once in a while, but we'll catch each other in the moment of it.
mhm.
And sometimes we just look at each other and laugh because we're like, wow, 10 years ago, this would have gone in a totally different direction.
Right. Yeah,
I'd
that's a win.
leave for like, 8 hours and go do something. And she would like go isolate. It's funny. It's
Yeah,
really
man, to be
funny.
able to come back to that, that's the key. I think I'm excited for you guys. I think this is cool. And even, working through the challenges of where the business has gone, I think is important. But
Yeah.
and I loved knowing the background on, you know, the evolution and the D structure of the Mayfield thing. I know that had to have been a really difficult thing emotionally for you. I know that um, while I lamented the end of the Mayfield Four, it paled in comparison to what you guys, faced. So I want to say personally, man, I appreciate all the contribution that you made to the music. I think
Oh,
I'm
thanks.
my life is much better because of music you put on this planet, man. So I
Well,
love it.
I do want you to know that, I mean, I'm kind of starting to step back into the music community, and that's why I really wanted to go down and support the event that you were at and that you
Yeah,
performed at. And it's like being able to still connect with like you and Rob and like Craig Montoya. I didn't even know he was playing that night, but going to see him play. And I started playing with a band, and we'll talk about that later. I'm not going to get into it right now,
sure.
uh, but it's therapy for me to be able to now start being able to practice and perform again. And so I'm super excited to share more about that later. But just to be able to have you as you're such an amazing person, amazing drummer, and to share so many things, with what's happened in our lives, the similarities and stuff. But I just
Thanks,
want to
man.
thank you for having me on this podcast
Thank
too.
you. Thank you, brother. Um, Guys, if you got here late, you don't have to just listen to our Mutual Admiration Society. You can go here though. Go to youtube.com/adaccesskevin. I've got fun guests coming up, and it seems to me like this is bass player month, right? So I had Eva Gardner from Pink's band last night on the show. My next guest happens to be Caleb Spiegel, who played bass for the band Slow Rush with Rob Dacre that Marty was just talking about. Just had Kip Winger on the show the other day, and then Michael Saravallo, guitarist and owner of Schecter Guitars, is going to be on as well in a week, as is the new release from Jared Watson. Lots of cool guests, and you'll find out about it if you hit that link below and subscribe. Uh, Marty Meisner, dude, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And give my love and hugs to Mickey, your bride.
I will. She was supposed to be here, but she had to go to a women's group function thing. But
It's all right. We
I
had men's
said you
group right here.
right. I said you can just pop on and say hi to Kevin. She's like, oh,
Yeah,
I'll
well,
tell him I love him, and I'll see him next time.
thank you. Thank you. Well, tell her she missed out all the way from Thailand. My son is here in the chat. He said, "Oh, Alexis Live." He loves
Oh,
your
sweet.
backdrop, man. I think he really enjoys. He appreciates your
Oh,
backdrop. So
awesome. Yeah, I gotta.
I,
Let's see. I did the purple flames for you, Kevin.
I appreciate that. Thank you. You got the memo. That looks gorgeous. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Well, thank you, Caleb, chiming in from Thailand, and for
Hey,
everybody else,
Caleb.
Thank you guys for chatting here and on Instagram. You guys, it was cool. I see that Caleb and John Colgate were both there.
Yeah,
Former
that's awesome.
band and buddy mates. We'll be back here again next week and off tomorrow, heading out with a flock of seagulls to go to some shows in Cali. So, Marty, I'll talk to you later, buddy. Have a great week.